Welcome to Beer Field. We've been doing this long enough to where I know exactly how much time I have to pour a beer before I have to talk. I am your host, Chris Hopper, at Beerfield Hop. Two-piece, joined by Dan Thury at Beerfield Thury. Dan?
With 2 E's. Things are good. They're good. You know, we're in the middle of our Scott Fish Bowl drafts. You and I are in what seems to be pretty quick divisions. I think you're about a round ahead of me. I'm assuming we're still a few picks away from the 8th. But
we're moving right along. For those that typically look at Scott Fish Bowl for strategies, I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to talk about it regardless. For those that look for wrinkles coming out of Scott Fish, because he's pretty much like kicker scoring, and I don't really want to credit him for tight end premium, but point per first down, staggering some scoring settings to make positions more viable, super penalizing pick six and interceptions. These are things that he brings into the community, which I don't, he's not creating it. I'm sure others have existed before. I can't give him that credit, but he brings them to thousands of people that then disperses them out. So, it's a good indicator for what scoring settings you might see proposed in your league and what you might see pop up. And this year, it's a real interesting take on things. First and foremost, you are only forced to start one of any given position. And then there's a super flex spot and everything else is flex. So you kind of get a best ball wrinkle in there a little bit where position doesn't so much matter. Just start your best players in your highest scoring lineup. But the difference is you still have to start them. It doesn't start them for you. So you got that going for you a little bit. And then also with the new kick return rules, the other big wrinkle here is that it's 10 points per return touchdown and 1 point for every 5 return yards. So you base that last year, you get a returner like Marvin Mims, or Braxton Berrios, or Rashid Shaheed. They could be getting you 9 to 10 points a game based on return yards alone, which puts them into wide receiver 4-ish conversation just based on that, assuming they do nothing else and don't house one. So it boosts up some French guys.
It's going to be really interesting to see how the new rule changes to actual NFL kickoffs this year have an effect on return yards and just kind of how all that all shapes out, because there isn't we're not going to get video game numbers like we had in the video game year, but there is some chances for some pretty high scores just with that alone if things get pretty crazy.
Yeah, there absolutely are, and it's going to make waivers more interesting too, because you can't sorry, but we just don't have a good pulse on who's going to be returning kicks for every team. There's a handful of guys in the league that are known return guys, Darius Davis being one, Marvin Mims, who we mentioned, Rashid Shaheed, Braxton Berrios handled some of that stuff last year. But that's returner positions are pretty variable year to year for the most part, and you may have one guy handling punts and one guy handling kicks still. It's not always the same guy handling both, and so it's going to be real interesting to see that play, and should add some waiver depth too, I think, which in a league that's 22 rounds long, waiver depth is not always easy to come by, but that should create some interesting waiver play.
Yeah, it's going to be some names are going to pop up and score, and there's going to be a week or two where you're going to get an unknown returner that just pops off and wins somebody their game that particular week because of it, and it's going to be some random Joe Schmo in the middle of bye weeks, which is what typically happens.
It's a 60-yard return, and it's a 10-point play or whatever. Yeah,
it's
12.
You get,
I don't math.
You get a lot of points. It would be
60 yards.
22. That'd be 22 points, right?
No, it wouldn't be a return
12 plus
touchdown. 10. Not house one. Just grabs a 60-yard return. Doesn't even have to house it.
That'd be 12. Okay, then that would be 12.
Yeah. Okay, I had the math right. Okay. What was I doubting myself?
I thought you said returning to the house. So I'm like,
no, it'd be 22 if they return it to the house. And that's where it gets huge, right? Because if somebody houses one, there's a whatever position one day, a flex one day, I guess, because a lot of those guys are going to be flex. So anyway, it's pretty interesting. I feel like in my draft this year so far, it's the most on strategy I've ever been able to stay, but it's also the least I've been trying to hack the scoring because, I'm not really willing, and nobody has been so far, willing to reach on returners. So it's really just been kind of a standard super flex tight end premium draft to this point. I think the middle rounds is where we'll start to see some returners go, but early on,
we're
pretty consistent.
We're probably still 5 or 6 rounds away from that happening.
Yeah, I'm about to hit
at this point
turn in round 9. So
yeah, like at this point we're so doing that because some of these guys will probably return. There could be a starter that ends up returning kicks or punts in 1 or 2 games,
for sure,
injury or just circumstance. So
yeah, just looking at my team, like DJ Moore's done it in the past. So
yeah, exactly.
Be interesting to see how that unfolds and keep an eye on. But good luck to everybody that's playing. Great. On a personal note, it's an honor to be invited back each and every year. This being our last year podcasting, I don't know. Like, I'll try, but it's a lot more competitive to get in as a fan than it is as an analyst. So,
yep.
I don't know when my next one's going to be. So, Dan, I know, has had the streak since year 1. I didn't get into SFB 10, but I've been in every other one. So, every other one since I've been doing this, and we knew Scott Fishbowl was a thing. So that's 5 for me. This is my 5th. So,
that would be SFB 8, 7, 7,
9.
We're on 7.
We're on 14.
No, not 9. I think we started in 7.
We're in year 7, but we didn't know it existed in year 1, which means you would have 6 and I would have 5. Because you would have been in 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. And I was
8
in
for sure, because I still have an 8 shirt 8. We've done it before.
Did we do 8?
Yeah, we did 8. I thought we did 7. I thought 7 was the TV one.
I don't know.
That was the first one. That was when you and Nick were like, you got to get our third podcast close, and I got in literally the day before the draft started.
I thought my first one. Hold on, I can just go look. I don't know why I'm arguing this. It shows up.
I wouldn't say argue, but it's more so a trying to figure out.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna go look because it shows on your SFB account. If you go log into it,
2018 SFB 8 was our first one. I was in the Scott Fishbowl playoffs, but that was 2017.
Gotcha.
So our first one was 8 then.
Okay. Well, first one was 8. Then that would make this my 6th. 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So that'd be my 6th then.
Yeah, I've done 7 in a row. I've gone in every year since that one. And like you, I fully expect to not be.
It was 8 probably. Because that was TV shows, and that was the year that Sam won.
Yeah. I thought that maybe it was 7, but 8. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 8 because that was the year that Sam won. And I did TV shows, video games, missed toys, did music, locations, food and drink. Yeah, I don't remember what TV show division I was in. I probably had the shirt upstairs and a t-shirt quilt. Video games, I had the Sega shirt. Music, I was the Kickers Matter year because I had the Metallica shirt. And then location.
I'm going back and looking at my old roster.
Oh, wow. Look at how it's grown, too. It started with 96 teams in 2010. And now it's up to 3,324. Our first year in, only 900 people got in. Now it's 3,300. Pretty cool. And all doing great work for Toys for Tots. All right. With that, it's been an honor to participate and play. I hope I can continue to do more of it. We'll continue to sign up. It's always fun to get in and chat with people. Really cool Aussie guy in my league right now that we're having a blast with. So it's just really cool to come together. And I don't know how your league is. My league is not hesitant to talk about draft picks at all or what we might be doing or anything like that, or just chat strategy or who we like or who we don't like, because we know that we're competing against the field, not I mean, yes, each other, but
There hasn't been a whole lot of that. A lot of our conversations is just because we got guys that are traveling. All the guys are traveling all over the world. It's pretty. We got a pretty global drafting room.
It's nothing that would hurt integrity, but there was a point earlier tonight where like the next 3 guys up all said, "I want to go running back," and then we didn't say who or who we were looking at or anything like that. Just said, "I want to go running back," and there's a couple guys I'm eyeing, and it was the guy that went first, and it went in order. The guy that was on the clock said he wanted to go running back and didn't know which one. And then the next guy said he wanted to go running back, and then I spoke up and said, "Yeah, I want to go running back too." So, not really a situation where you're waiting. It's not like we're not sitting at the turn talking to each other, and so a guy can snipe us or try to or anything like that. So,
yeah,
really playing it well on the integrity side, though, so I appreciate that. All right, we're drinking.
What's fueling Beer Fueled?
What do you got?
So I am drinking White Oak. White Oak's out of Bloomington, Illinois, right around my neck of the woods. Hopper's old neck. Still all of our neck of the woods.
I still go up there.
Mm-hmm. This is called Flock the Cash Bar.
Oh, Flock the Cash Bar. Flock the Cash Bar.
This beer is made for the Miller Park Brews at the Zoo event that is put on there. So this is a beer they made for them, given to me by the rep that was working. He was like, "You want to take this home?" I'm like, "Yeah." So they make this every year. I believe this is it's a fruited sour, but I believe it's raspberry. I want to say it's just raspberry. Yeah, it's a raspberry sour.
Cool.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, I'm drinking Stubborn German Steam Beer. So, Steam Beer is part of their series of beers that launches with Shoppy Fest. Leonard Shoppy was the owner of the Monroe Brewery. So, as 1899 circa, they were able to get a hold of his brewing ledger through a Shirt Tail family member, which actually had some old recipes in there from that time frame. So, a couple of them stay around. This being one of them. Stubborn German Brewing Company out of Waterloo, Illinois. And steam beer, if you've had Anchor Steam Beer, you're familiar with it, but a lot of people aren't necessarily familiar with the steam beer, or a California common, as I came to find out. So, you're basically looking at a cream ale base that has some darker malt in it. It's toasty, it's caramely. There can be some unique fruity character from the yeast because it is, it is West Coast, so it's fermented a bit warmer, and just a bit more depth. So, yeah, more on that as we go. But steam beer is a niche beer style that I really, in general, enjoy.
So I lied. This has blackberries, boysenberries, blueberries, and blackcurrant.
God, why would you lie to me? All right.
Do things.
News.
All right. Hit some rumors here real quick and just kind of do a little filler news segment outside of a very sad piece of news impacting the Vikings. I don't really think there's a whole lot.
No.
So Dak Prescott in the news was seen in a boot, so there's nothing wrong with his ankle. People just looking for news stories right now. Leonard Fournette intends to sign with the team before the season, if anybody cares about that. Yeah, rumors on Cordero Patterson having a bigger role than normal. Steelers cornerback Cameron Sutton has been suspended 8 games for violation of the personal conduct policy. It's after a domestic battery arrest in March, so early hit to their secondary. And let's see. Bo Nix has done nothing but impress teammates and coaches. This is kind of a waste of a news segment. This is the sad piece. This is really the only reason that we're doing this here. Vikings rookie defensive back Kyrie Jackson was killed in a car accident on Saturday, hit by a drunk driver. So, your reminder: don't drink and drive. But just really, really sad. JUCO transfer makes the NFL. Obviously, dream of his and a long path to get there. Coming out as a 24-year-old rookie, and just all taken away, just like that. So
it's sad. It's he's very popular. Like, he was starting to become a pretty popular rookie amongst the fan base. Obviously, his story of on draft night basically being called while he's at work, and then shortly after winning Employee of the Month, like all the dudes want to do is grind and kind of get away from his past and just kind of work his way back up into being into the talent that I think a lot of people thought he would be coming out of high school. So it's it's tragic. Like, despite, like, even in spite of, like, set aside just the talent, it's very reckless to drink and drive, and it's
yeah,
it's just the pain that you feel. You feel for the family, and you feel for the team, and just a family that's been created through through the NFL and through playing football and stuff like that for him. So it's stupid sad, just unbearably sad.
it is. All right. Rest in peace to him, and again, unbearably sad to see that news. When it comes to hype, I think what we're going to do for the rest of their tenure is, as we go through the division previews, if it's a team we've already talked about and there's something coming out from reporters or coaches or whatever that we want to break down or adjust the consensus on, we'll talk about it. If it's not somebody we've talked about yet, we'll just hold the commentary until we get to that division preview. One we have already talked about, and I have personal reasons for wanting to slip this in there. That's why I just made that rule up. Personal receiver coach Drew Lieberman told the Athletics' Paul Diener Jr. that Andre Yoshevitz and Chase Brown have made the fastest improvements of any player he's ever had. Lieberman is a personal receiver coach who's worked with the likes of Brandon Ayuk, Evan Ingram, Jacoby Myers, Dontavian Wicks recently. All guys who we've seen some massive year-over-year improvements out of, or career resurrections. So that's a pretty good track record with those guys coming out. You've seen Ingram eclipse 1,000 to Jacksonville. Ayuk make some massive improvements, particularly between year 1 and year 3. Myers, who couldn't catch a touchdown to save his life, go have a great season in Vegas. Wicks cracking into the Packers' ever-rotating cast of wide receivers. Chase Brown is a guy that I think we both really, really like to win that job coming out of camp. As and even as a receiving, if he is working as a receiver pretty consistently. We made some Rachaad White comparisons, I think, when we talked about the Bengals, and I think this does a little bit more to solidify his role in the receiving game, that he is putting this work in to potentially try to become somewhat of a bell cow. I don't think any of us expect hyper efficiency out of Brown, but if he can get volume in both facets, you're probably easy looking at a 12 to 1,400 scrimmage yard type season from him if he can take over that lead back role. And, without Boyd there right now, it's, I believe, Trenton Irwin penciled in as a wide receiver 3, but Yoshevitz is a guy that I really, really liked in last year's draft class. Not high talent, but he's high talent, not high draft pick, but a guy whose profile I really, really liked and tape I really, really liked coming out last year. So to see that, he's doing this and trying to crack, what is a wide open wide receiver 3 spot, and potentially more if T. Higgins departs after this year, I'm excited for that. So I wanted to kick that out there. He is a guy that, him and Jermaine Burton are two people that I know we're both watching for dynasty purposes in that battle. I don't think either of us think Trenton Irwin's going to hold that over those two guys.
No, and I think Burton's more of the probably multi-year play, because both of these guys could retain value if Higgins does indeed walk next season. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect much from probably Burton this year. I would think Ivosevich would probably get the first crack at it. at least in that third spot, and to go back to the Chase Brown thing. Yeah, I mean, he just has to beat out Zach Moss. And granted, Zach Moss found his footing in Indy. This is not Indianapolis. It's a different offense paired with different players, and it's a little different story here. So not to say that he can't do it. I'm just saying, I think Chase Brown's path looks pretty good.
It does.
If you are to believe he's better than Zach Moss, which you and I both believe that, then I it should be his backfield sooner rather than later. But we've seen a lot of teams still implore. I mean, during the Mixon era, Samaje Perine, like it was like they're back in Oklahoma again. Like we knew Mixon's very much better than Perine, but they stuck around because they'd like to have two backs that can be productive. So we'll see.
Aaron Rodgers missed mandatory minicamp due to a pre-planned trip to Egypt.
We gotta be the most unserious football star ever. I feel like pre-planned trip to Egypt
during minicamp. The Jets were made aware of the trip from the initial planning. He was present during every practice in Phase 1 and missed 1 week of Phase 2, but attended all portions of OTAs earlier in the spring and summer prior to his absence during minicamp. Okay. I mean, he's transitioning to retirement, right? That's what we're seeing here. He doesn't want to be doing this anymore, but he's still doing this.
It's like he doesn't want to be seen as a failure leaving the team that he got traded from. Like, he doesn't want to go out like Brett Favre. He wants to go out like Brett Favre's first year with the Vikings, not like his tenure with New York. So it's Rodgers retires after this year. Fuck, he may retire mid-season. We'll see.
Yeah,
I can hope.
It just walks off the middle of the season. You called that. Yeah. You called that last week.
See you later, guys.
Yeah, the rest of this is just a bunch of talk about who's learning the offense really, really fast. So if you believe in learning the offense fast, equating to anything, which after 7 years of this, we don't, Ladd McConkey and Jerry Jeudy are both in that boat. So good for them, I guess.
I'm in a rookie draft too right now. It's one of the last ones of the year that I have because I'm playing so many fucking leagues. And this, I mean, not a lot of difference in scoring here at all. Single QB. There's some weird roster breakdowns and in what positions you may or may not want to start. No premium, but it's IDP. That doesn't matter for this, but Ladd McConkey went as a wide receiver 5. He went over Worthy. He went over Bowers. He went over. God, it's just
you and
I think Brooks.
Yeah, you and I both have at least one more rookie draft that's got to get kicked off.
No, that's right. We got yours, right?
No, mine's done.
Yours is done.
It's
it's
right, Caps
League.
League.
It's the listener league.
No, it's Caps League.
Yeah, Caps League. It's Caps League. God, I really hope that's still going. I want to defend my fucking title.
All right. No, that's an off-air discussion. We're going to do that right now. Just let Ian run it. That's all I'm saying. Just let Ian run it. All right. Let's go on to this division preview, shall we?
Let's do it.
Division preview.
All right, we were talking the AFC South, and this is one of the more interesting divisions in football because, I think every year we project this one to be kind of close in mediocrity, if you will, but still close. And, a lot of these teams have made some we'll call it incremental improvements around the edges. But in some ways that's muddied the waters, and in some ways we're not really sure what to take of that. So we're going to try to get that all figured out, and we're going to start with the Texans. So and like always, we'll start at the quarterback position. So CJ Stroud, we've talked about him a few times over the course of the offseason. He's coming off of what would be considered a really good rookie season, right? Obviously completely outperformed Bryce Young, outperformed expectations. The Texans outperformed expectations. That's a really, really good thing. We've also talked on the show about where CJ Stroud can improve and what some of the black eyes on this are. And he's being drafted, I think, pretty high for what some of the underlying metrics are here. So 275 yards per game, that's good, right? Yep. 7.1 sack percentage is okay. But the 499 attempts, yeah, you'd be at about 550 if you had played all 17 games. That's okay. That's not going to put you into elite air over a 17-game season. The 4.6 touchdown rate is also very, very solid, but typically when we talk elite talent, we look to see that at 5+. And the 1.0 interception rate is so low it's damn near unsustainable year over year. And those are the things that kind of give not pause. He's still going to be pretty good, but I think that a lot of what people are expecting in year 2 might be blowing beyond what reasonable expectations are for a step forward, given, largely returning the same offense and coaching sets and everything like that.
It's funny because I've gone back and forth on this. I do believe there is some, there's going to be some potentially sophomore slump, but with him having the year that he had, 4.6 touchdown rate is good. It's not like unsustainably good though. Like it's to a point where that
it's
could
sustainable.
Easily,
that is, yeah.
It's that and like what I'm saying is that he could easily have that could easily also jump up to 5.5, and then all of a sudden it's we're looking at something great. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just like
to give people an idea. Do you mind if I frame some of these up as you go?
Yes.
Since I just pulled it up.
Go, please
okay.
Do it.
So framing that up a little bit, CJ Stroud was behind Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff, Jordan Love in touchdown rate. He was tied with Matthew Stafford and Derek Carr. The interception rate.
I think him throwing 5 interceptions is unsustainable.
I do too. The interception rate was a full half point lower than Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott. He was not anywhere
he gets to play a first place schedule, so he's going to be playing. He's playing Buffalo. He's playing Kansas City. He's playing Baltimore.
Yeah.
I don't know what the AFC South is getting this year in terms of the interconference divisions, but he's not playing a bottom tier schedule. He's not playing a fourth place schedule. He's playing some of the best teams of football. The Allen and Mahomes game could lead to pretty high volume scoring output, but turnovers, that's going to increase. The addition of Diggs and Mixon, who is a known pass catcher, it's going to throw more, right? His 17-game pace was 565 passes.
Yeah, we want to see him go. We want to see him go up north of 600. Yeah.
But you want to see 600. I think we're going to get there. The only pause is can the AFC South, when he plays those 6 division games, can he get there during those games, right? Jacksonville, you expect if Lawrence is going to take a step up, maybe even better than year 2 step up, then those will be good games. But guys like Indy, playing Indy and playing Tennessee, who are going to probably be slower pace, less throwing games, you might get some games where he's going to be quiet in them, because this is a good defensive team, because the defense took a big step up too. But this is them going all in. I expect to unleash Stroud even more so.
Yeah, and if you ask me what...
He's unleashed pretty well, yeah.
If you ask me what a good 17-game season for him looks like, I honestly think Jordan Love last year is probably a good comp to what we'd want to see. for that to progress. And that's saying a lot about Jordan Love, but Jordan Love at a 5.5% touchdown rate, 1.9% interception rate, lower yards per game. That's the other thing with Stroud is he led the league in passing yards per game. So, slightly lower completion percentage, like Love threw the ball 80 more times. I think that if you were to tell me that CJ Stroud was going to, in year 2, put up a Jordan Love season from last year, I would take that all day as progression to be happy. And that's not, so I think kind of what we're saying, because we got to move this along a little bit with you having to stop at 9, is that CJ Stroud probably will take a step forward, but I think the community is thinking that's going to be a much larger step than what it's actually going to be.
I think they're expecting Justin Herbert. I think that's kind of the expectation, is you're going to get probably closer to 5,000 passing yards instead of the 4,100. Obviously, on pace would have put him at 4,500 if he played 17 full games, or probably 4,700 if he played a full season.
He'd be closer to 2-0 with a lower interception rate at that point.
Yeah, and obviously more games throwing more probably lead to more interceptions. He's not Aaron Rodgers. I don't think we're going to see that levels of smart with the ball and a bit of luck. So I mean, I think the hype's come down a bit on the dynasty front. I got him as the QB7 and Scott Fishbowl.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, QB6 in the Scott Fishbowl at the 1-2 turn. So I think that's about fair, because he doesn't offer rushing upside to that extent. I think in that point, he's kind of like a Dak Prescott post-injury, where he's just not going to run the ball out, but he's a bigger body that can potentially use his weight in the red zone for touchdowns.
Sure. All right, moving on to the receiving game. So this is going to be the one that a lot of people are trying to figure out with the addition of Stephon Diggs. You had Nico Collins have a huge breakout year, and Tank Dell looked great before injury. And how does this lay out? And we've seen a couple different things. Dan, we'll reference Scott Fishbowls a lot because that's really the first redraft type of thing that we're seeing with a lot of knowledgeable people in that league. You saw all 3 of them go within 10 picks. For me, they went all within a round of each other. So I think Diggs went one round, and then Dell went the next, or Nico went one round, and then Dell went the next round, and then Diggs went the next round, or something. It was something along those lines. It was 3 rounds in a row that they went.
That's insane, because Diggs and Collins went one pick between each. They were back-to-back picks. It went Collins 605, Diggs 66, and then Dell went 704.
So here,
I would prefer to go Collins and Diggs before. I would take him before Dell, but that's just me. But so I think Dell's going to be your best value.
Collins went 5.2, Dell went 6.9, Diggs went 7.5.
That's insane.
Yeah. So people are trying to figure it out, is what that's there to illustrate.
That's true. Yeah.
Let's talk Diggs for a second. Obviously, if you played last year and you were a Stephon Diggs manager or Stephon Diggs adjacent, you know that beyond about week 6 of last year, it was really, really disappointing. More so beyond about week 9. From week 9 forward, he had 1 game over 70 yards, 1 touchdown, and it's not because targets weren't there for him, right? He was 7 or more targets a bunch. He had a couple of double-digit target games in there. Just the productivity was absolutely not there for Stephon Diggs, being on, the wrong side of 30 here. And it was a pretty drastic fall off. Now, Dan, you've noted the correlation between offensive coordinator changes. So,
which is big. I mean, the whole offense looked different. Obviously, I think it's uptick and Cook. If it weren't Josh Allen, your fantasy production changed. Josh Allen, just a freak that he is, continue to be the same. But this is and now he's got more competition for targets. He has a new quarterback, new offense. He now has to learn again. And as you mentioned, we're on side of 30.
Yeah.
All things leading up to a lot of ingredients in the cup of disappointment if it all come to fruition. We could be witnessing. But Diggs also, the way he plays receiver, can age pretty gracefully. He's still a crisp route runner. He still has decent hands. And now he's in an offense where he is not going to be the product of being an offense that has this much of a talented wide receiver room is now. You don't have to see double coverage constantly. And so there's a give or take here. I think I think if people can reset their expectations for Diggs, I think that's where we're going to see.
You reset your expectations for Diggs a lot the same way you reset your expectations for Keenan Allen, I think. It is the comparison I'm drawing.
I would expect more from Diggs, but yes.
You've got, well, I mean, you've got.
I would expect Diggs. Yeah. I mean, sorry. I'll go ahead.
You've got older receivers coming into offenses with young quarterbacks that are expected to be decent. And, with talent around them, essentially. Keenan Allen last year was a 1,200-yard receiver, 7 touchdowns, 108 receptions, 150 targets. And you're fading that, right? By and large, we are fading that, landing in that offense in Chicago. Diggs had 10 more targets, 107 receptions, about 70 fewer yards. I mean, their stat lines were very, very comparable, and they landed in very, very comparable situations. So to me, that says that, yes.
They went one round in between each other, too.
Yeah.
In my league, they went one round between each other.
And yes, Moore and Odunze, I would put both of them ahead of Dell and Collins. Collins had another worldly jump and another worldly season. We need to be looking for Nico Collins to regress a bit.
And based off of this drafting, it's definitely showing. I mean, 605. I mean, even 502 was a pretty steep drop from a top 3 round pick, even after the Diggs draft.
I just think it's pretty unrealistic to expect 1,300 yards on 110 targets again, right? And
from Collins? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And
with healthy Dell.
I mean, he was getting peppered with targets. He was getting peppered deep. And, he outperformed his previous catch rate by 20-some-odd%. Doubled up on his yards per game, while only adding basically 2 receptions per game. So either something clicked with him, or there's going to be some regression back here a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him regress back a bit here, putting him and Diggs really close. And I think Dell, might be left picking up a 700 or 800 yard season, and that's that. And I think the thing is that, do you want a piece of this offense? Yes. Who's cheapest?
The answer is
they
you want
Stroud. They seem to be really close. You want Stroud for sure.
The answer is you want Stroud. You want to try to get one of. I always tend to go for the cheaper wide receiver option when it's pretty, just any pairing option in the offense that seems pretty ambiguous at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You have to give the leg up to Collins because he's got he's played the most with Stroud. I know Stroud and Tank played back in Ohio State, but since this is the NFL, Dell's coming off of a major injury. Diggs around side of 30. I think you have to bet on some continuing chemistry being built with him and Stroud and what they were able to accomplish through the second half of last year. And it's just, I think 6th round Nico Collins, 5th round Nico Collins in yours, I think those are really good spots. If that's the case, it's just, I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yeah. And I guess we'll see. And there's going to be a lot of gnashing around how that's going to land. If I'm betting on somebody to jump out is the one here, it's probably going to be Nico, assuming the regression from Diggs is real and the fact that Tank Dell is 5'8".
I think it's more like there's 2 2s and a 3.
Yeah.
I think the one is going to be both Collins and Diggs. And it could be Dell. I mean,
I don't
big
think
playability that he has.
Yeah, but big playability.
I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't bet on it. No.
Yeah, big playability that he would have is less than Collins' big playability. So I think it's 2 2s and a 1. I think if I'm picking a favorite here, it's probably Collins because I do tend to believe that some of the Diggs regression is not just an OC change.
I agree.
He's been pretty frustrating lately.
We also know how Diggs is in an offense, in a locker room when he's not
featured.
When he's not being featured. So I think we could definitely see some Diggs, Antonio Brown, or not Antonio, but AJ Brown type of thing where it's little couple games he maybe starts off a little slow and then he gets the oil greased up. He gets his tires greased up with oil a bit. Yeah. He gets squeaky wheeled a little bit.
One other piece here I want to mention on the wide receiver front as far as depth. The Texans do have decent depth at wide receiver as well. So deeper leagues, we saw Noah Brown come in and perform admirably in pinch hit duty with injuries, and he could slide in for any one of these guys should they end up hurt again. But that's a pure injury thing. John Mechie, high draft pick, had leukemia treatments first year back last year, is still there. Again, I don't think any of these guys are going to threaten to take the 3 incumbents, but just to highlight the depth here, Ben Skoranek is there, and Robert Woods is still there as well. So they're quite easily 7 deep in serviceable receivers right now.
It's insane.
And they won't all break camp with the team either. That's the other thing here, right? Is they'll carry about 5 probably, maybe 6, depending on special teams involvement. Moving on to the tight end. So we talked about all those targets, and we'll get to mix in here in a second, meaning there's going to be some running back targets. So what's left for Dalton Schultz?
Low end tight end 1. 70 targets, 80. If he's lucky, if he stays healthy, he's also struggled with health.
Yeah, he had 88 targets last season. With people around him, played in 15 games, so he was also hurt a bit. I think you're probably in the 60, 70 target range, and you're losing a couple 100 yards and a few touchdowns on Dalton Schultz this year with the addition of Diggs, with bringing in Mixon, and some of this shit's going to level out. I think that they're going to have a really good team. It's going to be fun to watch NFL-wise. I think for fantasy, it's kind of a bitch to try to figure out right now what target distribution is going to look like.
We've had 11 tight ends drafted, and Schultz is not one of them. So I think Schultz outside the top 12, I think is worth the risk. And obviously in a non-tight end premium league, these are going to be pushed on to probably double-digit rounds, and I think Schultz is worth that risk because if this Houston offense does take off, if Stroud does take a big step forward, Schultz is going to be a big part of it. Schultz will not be a big part, but he'll be a part of it. And in an offense that's going to see him run pretty open throughout the field. Still be a body in the red zone too, for them.
We've had 13 picked, and Schultz is not one of them.
Yeah, I'll take the upside, knowing that the targets may come a little infrequent, but that should be known. He's never been a massive target guy.
No, he hasn't.
Unless things around him start to crumble and he's left us alone, or one of the alone.
Guys that have gone ahead of him, at least in my Scott Fishbowl League: Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, Brock Bowers, David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, Dallas Goedert, and Cole Kmet. Yeah,
we haven't seen Kmet or Goddard. Goddard's got to be one of the biggest.
He'll be one
sleepers.
He'll be one of the next to go. But yeah, he may be the next one. We still got Hawkinson on the board, but he's not going to play until October, so not still there. So
Hawk will be value. Just sit on the bench.
That's exactly what I'm thinking, honestly, is that I'm between Hawk or waiting to get my sleeper Boo and Jonnu. Anyway, Joe Mixon comes over here after a whole career in Cincinnati. We saw Dameon Pierce have a good first season and really fall off last season when given a shot again. Mixon has been relatively inefficient throughout his career, right around 4 yards a carry, 7.2 yards per reception, but he is a viable receiving back. He has been over 1,200 scrimmage yards, other than 2020 where he was injured. So, I mean,
yeah, the same offense in terms of upside, and
I agree.
He doesn't have a Samaje Perine that's going to take a more third down work. I think the biggest battle with Nixon is as he's getting older, can his body hold up? That's going to be the thing where it's like there is nobody there outside of Pierce, and Pierce is definitely not going to not going to be in on pass catching down. So
yeah, he's still only
how much work can he lose?
He's still only 28, so
yeah,
there is that,
and he got hurt early on in his career, so he
did
a little different for a 28-year-old. He doesn't have quite like the Zeke wear and tear, or like Fournette and Jacksonville wear and tear, or Derrick Henry time in Tennessee. But
but they did need someone. So if you're expecting 250 carries, about 1,000 yards, half a dozen touchdowns, and 300 to 400
firm
yards, firm RB2. That's exactly it. Firm.
Yeah,
he's
firm
firmly
RB2.
in like that David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift type of range.
Oh yeah,
Aaron Jones in that area. Yeah,
I mean he was like the RB20 in Scott Fish, and I think that's a steal.
Yeah,
I think he's solid too, with one upside. So
where did he go?
He went 602 in mine. I don't know how many backs went before him, but
yeah, I'm not going to count that. He went 6-7 in mine, so about the same area. 6th round pick. He went behind Jacobs, which is fine. Behind Pacheco, I probably would have taken him ahead of Pacheco. Behind Kamara, I probably would have taken him potentially ahead of Kamara. That's probably about right, though. Kyron, Achan. There's a few guys there that I would have taken Mixon ahead of. But he did go ahead of Zamir, Ramondre, Walker, Swift, Montgomery, Jones, Connor. So that's kind of where we're seeing him go. Seems like there's some depth at running back this year.
For sure.
All right, I think that's it for the Texans. Let's go ahead and move on, and let's chat Indianapolis. So the fun part to figure out with Indianapolis is going to be, what do we look like with Anthony Richardson under center, right? So you had a great season from Michael Pittman, some solid work from Josh Downs last year, with Gardner Minshew for the majority of the season. Gardner Minshew doesn't have the athletic prowess of an Anthony Richardson. He is a pocket passer. He is somebody that likes to work intermediately and relies on supreme accuracy to be able to do that. So, we're looking at an offensive shift here with completely different types of players. Anthony Richardson, I think it goes without saying, the question for him is, can he stay healthy? If he can, then, you're looking at worst like something similar to Lamar Jackson, probably. Maybe 4 games, 136 yards. Yeah, something similar, something a little bit lighter than a Lamar Jackson.
I'm good with that. Yeah. It's hard to say because I don't think he's gonna have the yards. Maybe I think like a combo of Hurts, and Jackson, where I think Richardson maybe a little bit better of a passer than what Lamar was when he came in.
Maybe a little Justin Fields. I think
the Colts' offense is gonna have him throw more. Like I don't think it's gonna be catered to him running and playing the dink and dunk and like throwing as minimal as he can.
But I think, are you in agreement though that the dink and dunk and intermediate and the passing numbers aren't going to be Gardner Minshew-esque either as far as attempts and volume to the receivers? Because I don't think Anthony Richardson as a fantasy asset is in question or where you put him. I think what's going to come more into question is how do you adjust for Pittman? What do you do with Downs? And some of those guys.
Pittman's second best game of the season came in week 1 with Anthony Richardson. Granted, small sample size, obviously. Changes to the offense have been made.
That's what makes it hard.
Jonathan Taylor, I don't think Taylor played then either.
He didn't.
So it's hard to say what the expectation of the offense as a whole, and this includes the wide receivers, running backs, and Richardson, because we haven't really seen this altogether healthy.
No, we haven't.
Start. And that's kind of where, like, I've seen A-Rich I've seen him on Twitter go as a QB1 in some Scott Fish leagues. I mean, people are 100% bought into him as being that guy that outscore everybody, which is, I think, insane to me because, well, I love Richardson and I think he has insane upside, but to take him over above, let's say, Josh Allen, Lamar, and all those guys, just given the fact that he is not a polished passer. This is also a division that's not going to, carve out, I think, heavy volume unless they take their step forward, and they'll get it through Houston and through Jacksonville. I like he himself also has to stay healthy, right? He's gonna have to protect his body more. Like he is, he's fucking Cam Newton size, and he missed most of the season and left 2 games early. Like it's how is the coaching staff going to protect him?
Yeah,
and if he throws more, that's
how you protect him.
Guys like Pittman.
It is.
Yeah.
It's good for guys like Pittman. Pittman was around a 70% catch rate, which is pretty standard. Catchable targets. We know Minshew's accurate. I don't think it's unreasonable to see him draw back more 900 to 1,000 yard range, 120 to 130 targets instead of 140 to 150. Maybe some minimal regression, but I think overall the offense is better. So you replace that with touchdown upside, and you're pretty even. I think it's kind of how I feel about Pittman.
Yeah, and he is the only pass catcher in this offense I want anything to do with, right? Like, is he going to see 156 targets? I don't know. I doubt it. Is he going to have more than 4 touchdowns, though?
Yeah.
If Aaron stays healthy? Yes.
I would bet that.
That I'll bet on.
Yeah, I would too.
He could even see he can even have just a higher yards per catch. He can be used more downfield, more potentially, even with having guys like Downs and Pierce.
If you were to
Mitchell there,
if you were to tell me that he's going to get 4 more touchdowns but 200 less yards, great, I'll take it. It's a wash.
Yeah.
And I think that's in the realm of possibility. And you're right. I don't want anybody else. Josh Downs is next guy up. He had 100 targets in an okay year. I don't want a secondary receiver here because the secondary option is run, essentially. Jonathan Taylor, not necessarily known for his receiving work. He'll be a big part of this. Is there any concern with JT down in the red zone and Richardson? I mean, they both are built for that area.
I mean, this should be the best red zone offense in football. Let's be 100% honest. This should be the best golden goal offense in football. And I think JT, while he may not get to like 15, 16, but can he get back to that? I mean, do I think he can get, he won't be at 19, 20, but do I think he could get mid-teens? Yeah, I think he could. Like even with A-Rich, again, another great way to protect your quarterback is not have him run on goal and goal.
Yeah.
And to have your big bruiser back in JT who can carry and that threat of him and Richardson in the red zone together should open things up a bit too. Like this, on paper, this offense looks very, very juicy.
Yeah.
We'll see if that gets put together or not.
Taylor was the 6th back to go in my Scott Fishbowl draft.
Third, no, 4th. I picked before Barkley.
He went 2 picks after Barkley. Spoilers, I picked Barkley, so I had a preference. Yeah. I think Gibbs and Bijan and Hall and McCaffrey. So Gibbs and Bijan are the 2 that probably stuck in there ahead of him. I wouldn't have Gibbs ahead of him.
I took Gibbs behind him. I took Gibbs to 301.
Yeah, I would not have Gibbs ahead of him. You can make an argument for Bijan. I would not have Gibbs ahead of him.
No.
There's really nothing else to talk about here. Kylan Granson and Jelani Woods at the tight end position are, guys that they're guys, right? They show things every now and again, and then are each other's own worst enemy because they just eat into workload, and that's that. So not really a shitload to go through there. Trey Sermon's the backup to Jonathan Taylor. That's about all you need to know for the Colts. Let's hit a beer review.
Beer review.
All right, I'll go ahead and kick it off. I got steam beer from Stubborn German Brewing Company, and unsurprisingly, classic example. It's toasty and a bit caramely up front. It's got a decent body, but it's refreshing. It finishes somewhat bitter. There is a little bit of like a unique, kind of like there's a little bit of a unique fruitiness to it. Almost slightly like juicy fruit, a little bit. But overall, it's generally clean. It's really real subtle in there. Most of it's malt character and in bittering hops, and it's super refreshing. It's a nice, flavorful, somewhat dark beer. Very, very well done. And yeah, I don't have it next to a steam beer. I think steam beer drinks a little bit, or Anchor Steam drinks a little bit less bitter. But honestly, I like the bitterness. It makes me want to come back into the glass for more.
Does sound good. All right, I'm drinking Flock the Cashew. Flock the Cash Bar.
Flock the
Cash Bar.
Cash bar.
This is from White Oak. This is This is a fruited sour with blackberry, poisonberry, blueberries, and black currants. You could definitely, you absolutely get the berry notes. The color, which I was drinking out of a glass because I didn't really want to dirty a glass, but very, very rich purple pink. Slightly tart. A lot of fruit in there. Obviously having those dark fruits, so it gets some subtle sweetness, and then the subtle tartness is from it being a sour ale. This is it's well done. It's refreshing, and in this kind of heat of summer night.
All right, very nice. I'm sorry, I'm poking the guy at the turn here to make a pick. Maybe. God, I hate that. Okay. Our Australian must have finally gone to sleep after 2 days. He's been the one harassing people to pick. All right, Jacksonville. So I mentioned that every team has some fringe upgrades and every team has some questions. So your fringe upgrades for Jacksonville come by way of a couple new wide receivers here. Taking Christian Kirk, thankfully, out of the one position. Thankfully, get you out of having two slots. They've added size. They brought in Mac Jones to back up Trevor Lawrence, and then Trevor Lawrence got paid for whatever reason, so he's not in dire straits or anything like that. But Trevor Lawrence had a really, really bad season last year. From what I've seen, Lawrence is still being drafted as a back-end QB1. So he did still have 4,000 yards last year. It's not quite the achievement it was before, 17-game seasons. He did play part of the year on a high ankle sprain that it felt like he came back really, really fast from. But the biggest hit with him was it's a super low touchdown rate and a really high interception rate. Actually, it's a sustainable interception rate. It's just a really, really low touchdown rate. So offense in general has got to get better.
I think we're looking at better Eli Manning, baby. You can always throw picks because he's just a very aggressive player. Gets the addition of Brian Thomas, gets the addition of Gabe Davis, loses Calvin Ridley, still has Christian Kirk, still has Evan Ingram, still has no Travis Etienne. There isn't. This is a very strong collection of playmakers in year 4 after getting paid the way that he got paid. I think he's the top paid quarterback in the league at the moment. this is them betting on him completely.
Yeah.
Brian Thomas Jr. is absolutely the type of receiver that they need in a true alpha build. Outside build, at least.
You bring in a true deep threat in Gabe Davis, and I'm not saying that facetiously like I do a lot of when I talk about Gabe Davis. Like, he is a true...
One thing that I know that Gabe Davis says, he's one of the best deep threats.
He's one of the best deep threats because he knows how to body
true.
out. He knows how to position. He's big on the outside, and he's going to give you a deep target that can go up and get it. And that's why it's inconsistent and why it's boom bust, because that's the role he plays, but he plays it well. Christian Kirk is prototypical slot receiver. We've seen that with Kirk his whole career. He was miscast being the alpha. They've given him every option to succeed. Well,
I almost don't think they brought him in to be the alpha. I think they brought him in just to be a really good
receiver.
I know he got paid like he would have been, but he's in a great role too, like, because he's not just your prototypical slot receiver. He's a deep threat receiver. He's a deep threat slot receiver because he can work downfield. That was his role at Texas A&M. That was his role with the Cardinals. He knows how to work all three levels of the field coming out of the slot. That's very beneficial because you have a lot of other receivers that can make the defense stressed by being
career yards per reception is 12.7. That's not exactly what I'd call like deep threat, but I get what you're saying though, right? He can do more than just play a prototypical slot. He's stout.
Yes.
He can position, he can run routes, and it is a good cast of playmakers. It's a great cast of playmakers. I'm not extrapolating targets here to say that he ends up at 120, 130 targets again is not that absurd. To say that you see something similar for or not for Gabe Davis, but for Brian Thomas is not that absurd. To say that Gabe Davis is in the 80 target range is not absurd, and he's going to have his big games. Gabe Davis is Gabe Davis. I don't think that changes here. I don't even know that you change anything with Evan Ingram here. I mean, no. Evan, 963 yards, 143 targets. Maybe that comes down a little bit, and you get more of an 800-yard, 125 target guy. That's still great for a tight end. So it's really the wide receivers here, and it all starts with Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a popular he already is. I don't have to think this. He's a popular pick, again, to right the ship, given what they put around him. Quite frankly, you're going to see CJ Stroud.
He's not going as high value as he's been to. This is probably the cheapest Lawrence has ever been.
Yeah.
Since his rookie season in terms of cost for your rookie, just for your redraft and even dynasty drafts if you're still doing a startup. Like, this is the cheapest you're probably going to see him be drafted in, and like, again, just like we talked about with him going into year two with the big changes they made then, Brendan Ridley and Brendan and Doug Peterson as that coach, like, we expect something more than what we got last year.
Yeah.
As long as he stays healthy, and obviously his receiving core stays healthy, I think we could get there.
Yeah. I want to see him combine all three seasons. I want to see him have 600 attempts like his rookie year. I want to see him have the 65, 66% completion like his sophomore and junior year. I want to see the 1.4% interception rate like his sophomore year. And I want to see a 4.5 to 5% touchdown rate. It's all in the realm of possibility. None of those are absurd numbers for him.
No.
And you're really happy with that at that point because you're in CJ Stroud range, you're in mid QB1 range. Especially since he's got a little bit of rush to him.
And I mean, and they were the division leader for most of the year last year before. It's like, he's like, this is like, we all talk about Houston and what they were able to accomplish, but Jacksonville's collapse started with Lawrence playing hurt.
Yeah.
Playing through those injuries because obviously they had to, because they were trying to compete to win that division still. So I like, they also got better. Like, it's not like Houston's the only team that got better in this division. So.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Here we go. Monthly splits. He essentially fell off of a cliff after he got hurt. for lack of a better way to put it. It just, things went downhill after the injury. His completion percentage fell off of a cliff. He didn't look right if you watched him play. The interception percentage shot way up. Sack rate went up. Like, things just got bad. Yards per game fell way off.
I don't know when it happened too. The week after Kurt got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Done for the year. Lost Christian Kurt. Really, it's always been a miscast one. Lawrence is also hurt. So, like, again, there's a lot of things that correlate to where Lawrence's struggles happen. And granted, he's always, like, again, we just talked about with Ryan, we talked about with Miguel when we had both on the show when I was still on. It said he's always been called the next great, like the great one as a prospect, and it was just, we got to get away from that. And year 4 breakout Lawrence it will not shock me if it happens. If he has a Shroud like season where it's very low touch, very low pick rate, but he's very sustainable, touch rate, as you mentioned, 4.5%, 5% with a 1.5, with 1.5 interception rate, uptick in throwing because he's healthy and the offense is moving. Like, he could be a 600, he could crack 650. And I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think their defense is as strong as Houston's, or is considered a very strong defense.
Yeah. And then Travis Etienne, again, good year last year, 1,400 total yards. Like to see more receiving touchdowns from him. He only had 1. But, overall, give me a little bit more efficiency, which should come with the offensive efficiency. Travis Etienne's also probably taking a small step forward.
Also battled injuries last year, too.
Yeah, just 1,000-yard season, 3.8 yards per attempt. It's way off of his rookie year. You're going to see that level out a little bit and see him have a better season as well. So, for Jacksonville, I think that Davis will be Davis, Kirk will be Kirk. Lawrence, I'll stop short of predicting a breakout, but it's what has to happen, essentially. And maybe a step forward for Etienne, and I think Brian Thomas breaks in as a wide receiver 3. Potentially even wide receiver 2.
Yeah, he could be your second half darling as he gets more comfortable as a true alpha. It's not the LSU route tree, but it gets really, really brought into this offense. Hopefully he doesn't have a slow start where it's harder for him to get on the field, but like, if he gets going early, it could be wheels off, because it's like the missing piece to this Jacksonville offense is a wideout like Thomas.
Yep. All right, Tennessee. A lot of changes. Vrabel is gone. Brian Callahan comes in. So immediately we got to think we're shifting from run first to more passing oriented. They bring in Tony Pollard from the Cowboys. Derrick Henry's no longer here, so you don't have to focus on the running game. And then you add wide receiver help in Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd to go around DeAndre Hopkins and push Treylon Burks down to the wide receiver 4 on this team. Let's start with Will Levis. More passing centric, better wide receiver options. Do you think Will Levis has a sophomore step forward here?
I never really bought into him.
Me either.
But what we do have here is an aggressive deep ball passer that's going to be more pass focused. It has good pass catching running backs. It has, good pass catching options at wide receiver. His costs is
nothing.
mid 2.
Yeah.
He's basically free and single QB. He's going to be, your QB 3-4 and most of your super flex teams. So I think he's worth the risk. It's just,
that's what I
don't
like
anything about Tennessee's offense. I like nothing about their offense. So it's kind of like buying in a more aggressive Mac Jones.
So
I think Tennessee's offense is gonna. It's not. I just don't believe in this team for this. I hope I'm wrong because they're all going to be priced well.
I think the hard part for me is separating, the fact that you're bringing in Brian Callahan, who was the Bengals offensive coordinator, to Tennessee, where we got so used to Tennessee just being an ugly offense to like, even though we were all in love with what we had in Cincinnati, and we don't love Levis, but that's where the but comes in.
I'm not going to correlate Cincinnati to.
No,
I'm not correlating Joe Burrow and Cincinnati to Will Levis in Tennessee, though. That's kind of also where I'm at.
No, I'm not making that correlation either, but I'm also saying that it is net positive given the scheme shift from Derrick Henry and run first and play defense, and what Vrabel was doing and what Arthur Smith was doing when he was there is the OC, and how we're used to Tennessee functioning. And I think that we have to shift a little bit from what we're used to Tennessee being, because we were so used to what Tennessee was going to do, and we just knew what Tennessee was going to do, and it was going to be ugly for wide receivers and great if you're Derrick Henry and pretty mediocre if you're the quarterback. And that's not the philosophy that they brought in, and that's not the moves that they made in the offseason, to where I think you are going to see that shift. Will Levis in 9 games was 255 pass attempts, so on pace for somewhat less than 500, over a 17-game season. Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears are not the backs you're leaning on, right? This is going to fall on Will Levis.
They're going to live and die by Mr. Mayo, right? 3.1 touchdown rate, 1.6 interception rate. He was a glorified
game manager
with a big arm. Like the potential in an uptick offense could be big. He could also throw a lot of interceptions. He's not the brightest quarterback out there. That was very glaring on his film in college.
Correct.
It's just that can the big play, can his game against Atlanta, where he had his first game of his career, he blew up. Can we have? He's not going to throw 4 touchdowns every game, but
no.
Can that style, can that aggressiveness, that deep ball aggressiveness, show out more with this change in philosophy? And combined with that, can he connect on those, and then can he stay out of trouble, i.e., not taking sacks and not throwing interceptions and not stalling drives because he's a low 58%. It's a game manager. 58% is pretty fucking bad. Your job is to sustain drives and not turn the ball over. And he didn't turn the ball over. He 1.6 interception rate's very good. I don't know how many fumbles he had, but 9.9 sack rate's not
58%
the worst thing in the world. That's fine.
Worst in the league, by the way. When you say pretty fucking bad,
that's pretty fucking bad. That's my concern is that, yes, he's going to throw more, and we're hoping for bigger plays, but
I think the flip side of this is that you added short and intermediate check down pass catching in Tony Pollard. That's going to help your completion percentage right there by a couple points immediately.
If he uses those. He has to use them.
You've also added Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd, which is an upgrade over whatever you weren't getting from Treylon Burks and Nick Westbrook.
Yeah.
Who I've never believed in. And so, if you take all of that and tell me that he's not a 58% passer, that he's a 62, 63% passer, suddenly you're talking, Matt Stafford with a lower touchdown rate, potentially, even if the interception rate gets worse. You're talking
I think I'm kind of hoping for some combination of year 2, year 3 Trevor Lawrence.
I'm hoping for Geno.
That's where I think he's going to end up being at his best.
I'm hoping for Geno Smith with a little bit more volume.
I just don't think he's going to be a game manager in this offense. And he's not going to be as smart with the football. I think with more aggressiveness, I think we're going to see
the touchdown rate goes up from 1.6, but even if that jumps up to 2, that's still pretty good.
Well, I mean, if he can stay there, I think he's going to be more in the 2.5 to 3 range. I don't think he's going to be 1. I think he's going to be more of a liability. You just hope that the touchdowns can be correlated, like Jameis Winston.
So,
but not as fun.
your 2.5 to 3 touchdown rate, or 2.5 to 3 on your interception rate. Let me look at this real quick. So maybe we're looking at Jalen Hurts as a passer Jalen Hurts without the rushing upside, essentially.
I'm still gonna, I'm sticking with Jameis. I think Jameis. I think you want to have the big pay passing ability, which can kind of offset some of the.
I don't think the interception rate's going to be Jameis. I don't think the interception rate's going to be Jameis.
I think it could be fine. Year 2, Josh Allen. Year 1, year 2, Josh Allen.
That's fair.
I think you're going to see I think you're going to see mistakes. I think you're going to see him make more mistakes.
Trevor Lawrence, like last year, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And because we don't know. Also, we don't really know. Even if the offense is more uptick, this team still has to sustain drives and keep going, and that's kind of where.
To put this a different way and frame it up on Will Levis. I'm not trying to convince anybody that Will Levis is going to be good. I am trying to convince people that Will Levis is probably going to outperform his draft capital. I
think you can say that.
That's where I'm at.
I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that.
I think if he's your QB3, in the same way that a Sam Darnold might be, in the same way that, name somebody like either of the Raiders quarterbacks might be.
Gardner Minshew, yeah.
Yeah, you may be on a little bit more solid footing than that.
Yeah.
Given the improvements that they've made. Now, let's talk those improvements with the last 9 minutes. Tony Pollard comes in from Dallas, got the lead back role. Everybody was insane about that, and then that didn't really work. Meanwhile, it wasn't disastrous. Wasn't fantastic. A little worse than Travis Etienne, essentially. He's going to come
to pay off. I think a lot of people were expecting.
No, because
the gripe too is that it just wasn't as they didn't get.
You added more volume and the efficiency went down. Who would have saw that coming?
I know
other than everyone.
No one's shocked. Yeah, and also I think Dallas was just a weird team last year too.
They were.
Besides, some stretches where it was all passing.
Mm-hmm. Tajay Spears will be change of pace. He had 450 yards last year, 100 attempts, 2 touchdowns. I think Tony Pollard was brought in to reprise his role as lead back, but maybe a little bit less so. You're probably looking 200 attempts, try to get some of that efficiency back and put him in positions to succeed. And obviously you're going to use Pollard in the receiving game. So, essentially what you're looking at here is Pollard's an RB2, back end, mid-tier RB2. Spears is essentially a change of pace guy. Pollard's going to have receiving upside. I think that's what's going to carry him.
I think RB2 flex. I think I'm a little concerned with, total volume and also bad offense. Well, I project to be a bad offense, and like they still like Spears, 3rd round pick. Pollard also doesn't have the size. He doesn't have fantastic size. I think they're both kind of built similarly.
They do like Spears, and you had P. Ryan coming in and taking 3rd down work from Mixon. You still saw 250 attempts and 60 targets. So
yeah,
if Pollard,
we're gonna get a better
200 to 220, and you've got 130, 140 or so for Spears. I think that's formidable.
That's fair. Yeah.
So that's just bringing that up, and there's nothing sexy about Tennessee. There's not.
No. It's hard for me to get excited about an offense. I just I don't know.
No, you can't. DeAndre.
I wish I liked Will Levis a little bit more because I think there could be something here, but
DeAndre Hopkins last year barely over 1,000 yards, just 130 targets, and you bring in target competition for him. You got to be concerned about that to a degree. He's not at elite level anymore. You're drafting him around Smith and T. Higgins at this point.
Yeah,
because that's about what he is.
He hasn't even gone yet.
Yeah,
in our Scott Fish. So that's how people feel about it.
And Calvin Ridley, again, he's been traditionally miscast, and he's not walking into a situation where I think he gets a boatload either. You know, you were looking at him kind of probably in the same vein as Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I think 100 targets for him.
Yeah, about 100
Maybe
targets,
100.
700 to 800 yards.
They paid him pretty handsomely, so I mean, it depends. They may try to focus him as the one over
you're
an
gonna,
aging Hopkins.
You're going to have to balance it between the two, though, because Hopkins will also gripe if he doesn't get anything going. So,
I think they should move him. Like, to be honest, I think they should try to find a fourth round pick for him at this point.
No, I think that they should too, but
that's just me. Ugh.
They also need to address the receiver position through the draft, though, because piecemealing in a 30-year-old Hopkins and a 29-year-old Ridley isn't solving it. And that's kind of the problem with Tennessee that is still the same, even with the new coaching staff, is that we're just going to piece
what this offense needs, right?
Find them. What?
This offense needs A.J. Brown.
It does need
needs some sort of A.J. Brown type.
Yeah.
It's almost like
now you brought in
had one.
3 aging wide receivers, essentially. And tried to say fixed.
All pretty much in their 30s.
Yeah. And a couple of mediocre quarterbacks. Don't forget Mason Rudolph's here, too. That is the threat to my Will Levis hype, is Mason Rudolph.
Oh, God. Like, Lord, no.
All right. That's the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be back next week with an ADP check-in. By the way, Tuesday show, just scheduling the way it works, should be back on Thursdays next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.
For the show at Beerfield FF, I'm at Beerfield Hop. Dan is at Beerfield 3. You get a good month of nothing happening on Twitter because we don't tweet.
Yep.